This young woman was strikingly beautiful, far too radiant to simply be a girl from the forest. Feeling elated, Confan could hardly contain his joy. The emotions of youth stirred within him as he became captivated by her touch. Cold winds blew through the forest canopy, causing dry leaves to fall in swirls, except for the massive hoopia tree, which still had its dense green leaves. Its large, dark brown trunk loomed ominously by the stream, which had all but dried up. The sound of bamboos scraping against each other echoed as the cold winds howled. Thor, a young engineer from the company, contracted to build the road through this forest, found the landscape strange. Everywhere he looked, it was nothing but mountains and forests. Many ethnic groups lived here, some even deep in the woods. He often spent his free time in the forest with Dan, a local worker he had become close to. One day, Dan invited Thor to ride on the back of his motorcycle to go fishing at a stream deep within the woods. The path was a narrow, overgrown trail. Tall trees loomed overhead, making the entire route feel eerie. The clear sky quickly darkened, and soon heavy rain began pouring down. Dan cursed under his breath, frustrated. Damn it! If the engine dies, we're going to be stuck here until nightfall. What should we do? It's already late afternoon. If we're stranded, all we have is your gun and my machete. Thor, looking worried, saw Dan thinking before replying. Let's take shelter under the tree. If the engine won't start, we'll have to walk back to the village and leave the bike here. They hurried to take cover under the large hoopia tree. Thor noticed colorful clothes tied to his trunk, then pulled out his gun to check it. There are 5 bullets in here. I hope we don't encounter anything that will make us use them. Dan muttered nervously. We need to reach the village before dark. If not, we will have to sleep in the trees, because this part of the forest still has tigers and bears. Thor nodded, realizing that this was his first real adventure in the wild. The rain eventually stopped after about a kilometer of walking, and the forest began to grow dim as night approached. Thor felt uneasy, recalling tales of forest spirits and curses he had heard before. He raised his hands and prayed, "O spirits of the forest, protect me." This eased his anxiety somewhat. Suddenly, Woodman heard a distant sound coming from the south. At the same moment, Thor's eyes met with a large black figure in the distance. It was Bear, standing on its hind legs with sharp claws and bared teeth. Dan shouted in alarm, "Run! Run!" Thor didn't waste a second and dashed forward, hearing gunshots behind him, but not daring to look back. He ran, stumbling in the muddy ground, tripping over roots, and finally hitting his head hard on something solid. The impact left him dazed, and he soon lost consciousness. When Thor regained awareness, he found himself lying in a small hut. The light from a wall lantern illuminated the room, allowing him to see the figure of a woman sitting with her back to him. She turned to face him, her beautiful face glowing in the soft light. Thor stared in a daze, stunned by her beauty. "Where am I?" he asked. She smiled sweetly at him. "You've woken up." Her clear, central Thai accent left Thor even more amazed. "Wait, is this your home? I remember running from a bear and then hitting my head. Where am I now?" "You're in my house," she replied. "My name is Kui." Her voice was melodic, so much so that it surprised him. She handed him a cup of water as though she knew exactly what he needed. Thor quickly sat up and drank the water, feeling parched. She explained that she had found him unconscious under a tree, not far from her house, and had dragged him here. She gently touched the swollen lamp on his forehead and said softly, "Oh no, you've got quite a bump here. Let me get some warm water to compress it for you." Hui disappeared briefly, returning with a small basin of warm water, steam rising from it. She soaked a small cloth, wrung it out, and carefully pressed it to his swollen forehead. The scent of her perfume filled the air as her gentle touch caused Thor's heart to race. He couldn't help but stare at her, entranced by her beauty and the soft fragrance surrounding her. Her radiant face was framed by her traditional attire, a sarong and a mohawk blouse that made her look both beautiful and adorable. Feeling better? Thor asked, smiling warmly. He couldn't help but place his hand over hers as she continued applying the warm compress to his forehead. The emotions of youth began stirring in his heart, causing it to flutter with every touch she made. So, how many people live here? Thor asked, feeling curious as she glanced around the small hut. He was surprised to find no sign of anyone else living there. Just me and my father, Quay replied, but he's been away in the forest hunting deer for a few days, so I'm alone right now. Thor was shocked that such a beautiful girl like Quay was living alone in a hut deep in the forest. How can you manage all by yourself? Aren't you afraid? Thor asked. Afraid of what? She smiled gently. I lived like this my whole life. I'm used to it. There are other homes around here, but ours is just the last one on the edge of the village. She kept applying the warm coat to his forehead while smiling sweetly. Her calm demeanor putting Thor strangely at ease. He found himself captivated by her charm, believing everything she said without question. They continued talking, and the more they spoke, the more Thor felt drawn to her. As they laughed and teased one another, the bond between them grew stronger. Eventually Quay said, It's getting late, and it's cool outside. Don't sleep here. Come inside the room with me. It's warmer. Thor was taken aback by the invitation, but when she pulled him up by the hand, he found himself unable to resist. That night, they slept side by side, sharing the warmth of each other's bodies in the chill of the forest night. As the night deepened, Thor felt himself overcome by a surge of desire. Unable to resist the emotions rushing through him, he succumbed to the warmth and the allure of Quay's presence. The exhaustion from the day's events eventually took its toll. He drifted into a deep sleep. He was abruptly awakened by someone shaking him. Opening his eyes, he found himself surrounded by a group of villagers. Dan was among them, and it was he who had woken him up. Thor, still dazed, looked around in confusion. He wasn't in Quay's cozy hut anymore. Instead, he found himself lying beneath a large hopia tree where he had first taken shelter. Dan, visibly relieved, explained, I thought something terrible had happened to you. We've been searching for you all night with the villagers. Luckily, you didn't run into any tigers. And the bear? Thor asked, his memory of the encounter with the bear still vivid. He remembered the gunshots, but nothing afterward. I took care of it, Dan replied. Uncle Rum is handling the remains now. What's strange is that you slept in the forest all night without a single scratch or even a mosquito bite. The other villagers, just as surprised, exchanged puzzled glances. Normally, the forest was teeming with mosquitoes, and yet Thor seemed completely untouched. I wasn't in the forest all night, Thor stammered, still confused. I was in Quay's house, with a Quay? There's no house around here. One of the villagers interjected. The closest house is 4 kilometers away. Uncle Rum, a village elder who had helped organize the search party, looked uneasy. There's no girl named Quay around here. No one lives in this part of the forest. Thor looked around baffled. He had been so sure. It must have been a dream. He muttered to himself. Or maybe the forest spirits were protecting me. As he spoke, the wind rustled through the hopia tree, causing its leaves to sway. Everyone froze for a moment and settled by the sudden gust of wind. Uncle Rum, clearly unnerved, urged them to leave quickly. Dan hurriedly replaced the spark plug on the motorcycle and helped Thor onto the back. As they rode away, a faint floral scent lingered in the air, and Thor had the distinct feeling that someone or something was watching him. When they finally reached Dan's house, Thor felt feverish, his body weak and hot as though he had caught a cold. Dan decided to stay up with him that night, keeping watch. In the middle of the night, Thor was startled awake by a soft voice calling his name from outside the house. Thor, Queen misses you. The voice was gentle, almost sad. Thor bolted upright in bed, but Dan quickly grabbed his arm. Don't go. Dan warned. That's not a human voice. Dan's face was serious, illuminated by the dim light of the lantern. He pulled Thor back down, urging him to stay put. That's the spirit of the Hopia tree. If she falls in love with someone, she'll do anything to make him hers. But if she gives in, she'll drain your life force until you wither away. It's how she survives. Fear crept into Thor's heart. The strange events of the night before finally made sense. It had all been the work of the forest spirit. What should I do? He asked anxiously. She can't enter the house. Dan reassured him. The spirits of the home will keep her out. Just stay here. Close your eyes and pray. Ignore her calls. By morning she'll leave. They lay quietly, listening to the voice grow fainter until it eventually disappeared into the night. Finally, both men managed to fall asleep. In the days that followed, Thor returned to his work, but Dan began to notice something strange. Thor's face had grown pale, his eyes dark and sunken, as though he hadn't slept in days. Are you feeling alright? Dan asked, concerned. You look like you haven't rested. Before Thor could answer, he suddenly broke into a violent cough, raising his hand to cover his mouth. When Thor opened his hand, he was shocked to find it stained with blood. Dan, equally alarmed, immediately thought something serious must have happened to Thor. You're coughing up blood? Since when? Dan asked in a panic. It started this morning. Thor replied, his voice weak. I don't know why. I've been feeling really off lately. Dan, now even more concerned, insisted. You need to see a doctor. You look as pale as a ghost, like all the blood spraying out of you. Your eyes, they're dark and sunken, like you haven't slept in years. Suspicious of what was really going on, Dan looked closely at Thor and asked directly, Have you been doing something? Anything strange? Don't hide it from me. Tell me the truth. Thor hesitated, avoiding eye contact, and stammered. No, I haven't done anything unusual. I've just been walking like normal. Dan wasn't convinced. He had a feeling that Thor might have fallen back into contact with the forest spirit queen. Determined to find out the truth, Dan decided to secretly watch Thor that night. Later, as Dan quietly approached Thor's cabin in the company camp, he peered through a crack in the window. His heart nearly stopped when he caught a glimpse of a beautiful woman in the room with Thor. The woman turned sharply, locking eyes with Dan as if she knew she was being watched. Dan immediately recognized who, or rather, what she was. Without wasting another second, he pulled her from the scent. As he ran, Dan noticed a monk walking along the forest path. Filled with relief, Dan hurried over to him. Father, Father! Dan cried out, panting. The monk looked calm and simply raised his hand. Why are you so frightened, my child? The monk asked gently. Dan, still catching his breath, stammered. It's the forest spirit, the one who's after my friend Thor. The monk nodded knowingly. Don't worry, child. The spirit will not harm him. Dan was astonished. Father, you know what's happening? He asked in confusion. The monk smiled faintly and said, I do. Before I came here to set up my camp, the forest spirit came to me and pleaded for help. She pleaded with you? Why? The monk explained. She knew that I would be invited to your camp this morning to give a sermon. She was afraid that if I did, the power of the Dhamma would dispel her enchantment, breaking the spell she has over the man she loves. She begged me not to come, but I explained to her that I must go where I am invited, for it is my duty to bring peace and compassion wherever I can. Understanding this, she asked only for one final chance to say goodbye to him. Dan felt a wave of relief wash over him, his fear gradually subsiding. So, that's what's going on. Yes, the man confirmed. The dawn is near. Wait here until morning, and you'll see for yourself. Early the next morning, the foreman of the camp arrived to invite the monk to give a sermon, just as he had predicted. Then followed them to the camp, where he saw Thor sitting among the workers, appearing much calmer than before. The monk sprinkled holy water over the crowd for good fortune, and called Thor over to speak with him privately. After a brief conversation, the man sprinkled more water on Thor's head, then noticed that the dark circles under Thor's eyes seemed to fade, and the pale, sickly look he had carried for days began to lift. As Thor returned to sit beside Dan, he whispered, "The monk told me that he was neither a ghost nor a human, but a Namman, a spirit tied to the forest. She's powerful, stronger than most spirits, but not malevolent. She's somewhere between a spirit and a deity." Dan nodded, listening closely as Thor continued. He explained that when the man unites with the Namman, his life force is drained slowly, and eventually he will die. That's what was happening to me. But the monk reassured me that he won't return. She lets go of me now, so I'll be safe. Dan sighed with relief. Well, that's good news. I was worried you wouldn't be able to escape her. Thor smiled faintly at his friend's concern. After the monk left, Thor and Dan built a small shrine near the large hobia tree where Thor had first encountered Quay. They placed offerings and put up a sign that read, "Shrine of Mercury, the guardian spirit." Thor stood in front of the shrine for a long time, gazing at it in silence. After a while, Dan heard him whisper softly, "Goodbye, Quay. If we're truly destined to be together, we'll meet again in another life, one where it's not between a man and a forest spirit." Lastly, remember to like and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss our future videos and to support us in making more. Thank you for watching till the end.